Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Carrie Burke, your moderator for today's webinar, Enabling Developers in Your Application Security Program with Coverity and ThreadFix. You may send in questions at any time during the presentation via the Q&A chat feature. We will collect these and address them at the end of today's presentation. I would now like to introduce Dan Cornell, a globally recognized application security expert who holds over 15 years of experience architecting, developing, and securing web-based software systems. As Chief Technology Officer and Principal at Denim Group, he leads the technology team to help Fortune 500 companies and government organizations integrate security throughout the development process. Presenting alongside Dan, we have Mehdi Hashimin. Mehdi has 19 years of experience. He started his career writing device drivers. After that, he worked as a sales engineer at Wind River before becoming product manager for development tools. At Synopsys, he manages Coverity's static analysis tool with a focus on embedded ISVs and automotive verticals.
Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, Mehdi, for agreeing to be on this webinar today. Really excited to talk about some of the things we've been doing with ThreadFix, and especially the integration that we now have with ThreadFix and Coverity's static analysis platform. So from an agenda standpoint, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about, or Mehdi is going to talk about Synopsys and the work that they're doing in the application and software security space, and specifically about the capabilities of their Coverity SaaS tool. I'll provide some background on ThreadFix, and then we'll talk about how Coverity and ThreadFix work together and how that is of particular interest or value to ThreadFix customers looking to add static testing, or to Synopsys and Coverity customers looking at ThreadFix. And at the end, as Carrie mentioned, we'll have some time for questions. So now I'll turn things over here to Mehdi so that he can talk about Synopsys and specifically about Coverity.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Dan, for the introduction. I would have a few brief slides here that introduce Synopsys and specifically Coverity to you guys. In this slide, I will go over the portfolio of the products that Synopsys offers, Synopsys Software Integrity Group. So we have 4 major products here. Coverity being the first one was acquired by Synopsys, which is a leading static analysis solution for security, quality, and compliance. Chronomicon, you might have heard it, that they're famous for finding the heartbleed issue. Cigital, which is over 400 security experts with a full portfolio of managed and professional services. And lastly is Black Duck, SCA tool, which is the authority on open source security and risk management. So here we want to focus on Coverity, and I cover 4 areas that we believe Coverity provides unmatched features, and the first one being the accuracy. You want your developers to have access to the most accurate and trusted results that the solution provides, and believe Coverity does that. The second one being the coverage. You might want to ask, does the solution that you use support all the languages and frameworks that matters to you? The third one being consistency. Often our customers or users need to run both a static analysis tool in their build servers as nightly test and also do desktop analysis. And you want to make sure the results between these two are consistent. And lastly is being a scalable solution, which means not only it works with millions of lines of code and files, but also if you have so many projects in different languages, this static analysis tool can scale and cover all those cases. So the key points that I want to mention in this slide is that Coverity is the industry-leading solutions that will help both development and security teams address security, quality, and compliance defects as the code is being written. It's fast and it scales. We support parallel analysis that runs up to 16 cores at the same time and delivers 10x performance over serial analysis. We have fast desktop analysis, which only reanalyze code that's changed whenever you want to scan the code. And it scales, which accommodates thousands of developers in a distributed environments. The second point that I want to make is the accuracy and depth of results. We have patented technology, and we provide full path coverage that ensures that every line of code and every potential execution path is tested. And the last one I want to mention, which is the integration that we have with many IDEs, continuous integration build servers, SCMs, and issue tracking systems. Here, I would like to emphasize that Coverity has broad support for the languages, tools, and standard development teams, what they care about. We build Coverity ground up to fit into existing workflows. It integrates seamlessly with any build system, and it generates a high-fidelity representation of source code to ensure understanding of its behavior. It supports rapid integration of critical tools and systems used to support the development process, such as source control management, build and continuous integration, bug tracking, integrated development environment, and ALM solutions. And lastly, Coverity is an open platform that allows developers to import third-party analysis results into the workflow to view and manage different types of defects in the same way with a single view of software defects and risks. Okay, Dan, I pass it back to you. Dan?
There we go. There we go. Yeah, thank you, Mehdi. I managed to mute myself there. So yeah, thank you very much, Mehdi. One of the things that I think we'll talk about going as we go further, a really interesting thing is Synopsys has assembled a really strong portfolio of application security, software security solutions. And we're really excited to have that integrated or now available to integrate with the ThreadFix platform. So just a little bit of background about the ThreadFix platform for anybody attending who might not be familiar with it. What ThreadFix lets you do is it lets you create a consolidated view of your applications, your assets, and your vulnerabilities, and pull in the results of all the different testing activities that you're doing. From that, you can prioritize these risk decisions based on data and transition vulnerabilities to the developers in the tools they're already using. Just to visualize how this works, on the left side of the equation, you have all the different testing and software assurance testing, application security, software security, however you characterize that in your organization. They're all the different types of testing. So static analysis, for example, obviously with a platform like Coverity, dynamic application security testing, IAST, and software composition analysis, as you would with Synopsys Black Duck. With ThreadFix 3.0, we also support the import from the network scanning tools, so the Nessus, Qualys, and Nexpose Insight VM types of tools, as well as the manual testing that you might be doing, third-party testing, and allows for all of the false positive triage. And that gets pulled into ThreadFix, the data gets normalized, deduped, to provide this single consistent view of all these different testing activities. and then that allows you to communicate on the other side out to reporting systems for various stakeholders across the organization. Allows you to integrate with defect tracking and ticketing systems and communicate out to other stakeholders such as the GRC folks in your organization. So what do we mean by create a consolidated view of your assets, applications, and vulnerabilities? ThreadFix lets you lay out here all the different networks where we have our applications deployed. Here are all of the teams we have around the world that are developing software and the applications that each team is responsible for, as well as the metadata about those applications. Is this written in Java? Is it written in .NET? Does this manage data subject to PCI? Is it public-facing or internal-facing, and so on and so forth. So you can lay out this portfolio of all the various applications that you have, as well as the network assets that support them. From that, we then pull in the results of all the different testing activities that we are undertaking. And I talked about that just a moment ago. So again, static analysis, dynamic analysis, integrated application security testing, software composition analysis, as well as your network and vulnerability scanning. This gets pulled in, normalized, and deduped. And what we typically see in production is a reduction in the overall finding count of 15 to 35% based on this. And we have technology that we've integrated in the platform for application security vulnerabilities that allows us to correlate between static application security testing and dynamic application security testing. And we actually had 2 patents issued for that technology that are included with the platform. So what we've done at this point is we've pulled in the results of all these different testing activities, and we have a cleaned up view of that data. From that, we can start to prioritize and make risk decisions about these vulnerabilities. The unfortunate truth in any security program and the development programs that they interact with is you're never going to be able to fix everything. I don't like that. People on this webinar probably don't like that, but I think it's important to admit that that is the reality. We have to triage and focus our limited resources, our limited remediation resources, where they're going to be most effective. And so with ThreadFix, having all of this data in one single location, having normalized, cleaned up the data, and being able to slice and dice this data, and combine that with the metadata that we have about the assets, we can make the determination with the limited resources we have, which are the vulnerabilities that we're going to prioritize for fixes. And this also gives you data at the program level. Because you have data from all of these different testing activities in one central location, that gives us a lot of really valuable data that we can use to take a much more quantitative view of our application security and vulnerability management programs. We can start to look at what is the effectiveness of the different activities we're undertaking. If we run developers through training, does that result in fewer vulnerabilities being introduced or vulnerabilities being fixed more quickly? We can look at the performance of different technologies against one another and just overall take a much more quantitative view of our program and use that to drive greater maturity. What we also do with ThreadFix, because finding vulnerabilities is obviously important, but the world gets better when these vulnerabilities are fixed. And an important thing, and I think this is something really interesting about the way that Coverity views this space or the challenges of application security that is very in line with what we view, which is this is all about, at the end of the day, this is all about or largely about the developers. And so how do we integrate with the tool sets that these developers have? And I think that's something, again, really interesting about the way that Synopsys and Coverity view the challenges associated with application software security, very much the same as we do. And so with ThreadFix, with this consolidated, normalized view of the vulnerabilities, you can bundle these up as it makes sense and send them over to the developers in the tools they're already using. And this is something that it sounds like a bit of a pedantic point, but something that we found to be really critical. If you're trying to communicate with developers by emailing PDFs or Excel spreadsheets around, or if you're even worse, printing out PDFs and putting sticky notes on the pages of the vulnerabilities that you think are really bad, you're introducing friction into the remediation process. But by streamlining this, by going to the dev teams and saying, we understand the tools that you're using, and we are at least trying to understand the processes and the challenges that you have, we want to communicate with you in a manner that has less friction. And the best way typically to do that for vulnerabilities is to have the vulnerabilities that security teams care about turned into software defects or software change requests that live in the tools the developers are already using, because that's how they think about making updates to the software. And those are the tools they use to manage their workload. And by creating, or with these bidirectional integrations that we have with these defect tracking and ALM systems, what it allows you to do as a security practitioner running a security program is to bundle these vulnerabilities up, turn them into software defects, and then monitor the progress of these teams so that you can focus your efforts where they are most important. If you're turning vulnerabilities over to development teams, they're successfully fixing them, fantastic, that's what we want to happen. But if you find that you're turning vulnerabilities over to teams, they're not fixing them, or they believe they've fixed them, but those fixes are ineffective as you identify when you do rescanning, that lets you know these are the teams that we need to reach out to. This is where we need to focus the limited resources that we have and really focus on training and remediation support with these specific teams. And the value that we've seen in this is a reduction in the mean time to fix for vulnerabilities of up to 44%. And that's something that I think is really important, or that makes me really thrilled to see outcomes like that. Because what it shows is these organizations are able to reduce the window of these vulnerabilities being exposed, which, again, assuming that they have selected the right vulnerabilities for remediation, means they've reduced their risk. And that's really, at the end of the day, something that I'm very excited to see. With ThreadFix with ThreadFix as a platform, as well as with the Coverity platform, it enables secure DevOps to integrate application security testing into the DevOps pipeline. And again, this goes back to the theme of how do we best support developers with our software testing, our security testing efforts. Because to the degree that if you look at your security program, or your app security program, to the degree that you can integrate with the tools the developers are using, again, that reduces the friction in the process and makes everything work a lot better. So now let's take a look at Coverity and ThreadFix together. Connecting to Coverity in ThreadFix is really straightforward. Basically, you can go through and connect as a remote provider, which means you connect to the Coverity server, enter the credentials for the account you want to use, and it's going to pull back a list of the applications that are being managed in Coverity. You then map those applications to applications in ThreadFix, and on a scheduled basis, new results from Coverity get moved into ThreadFix. And so as new builds or as new test results become available in the Coverity server, we see those flow into ThreadFix, go through that normalization and deduplication process, and get added to all of the vulnerabilities that are in there being centrally managed. Here we see an example where we've also connected to a Black Duck server, again, another fine Synopsys product. And so that allows us similarly to pull the results of those testing in. And you can also connect to other external systems if you're using, that you may be using for doing testing. If you're doing dynamic testing with an AppScan Enterprise or a NetSpark or Cloud or something like that, you can connect to these server-based systems, and all of that data then flows into ThreadFix and goes through that normalization process. So then what we see is this lives, this data then lives in ThreadFix alongside of these other vulnerabilities. And so here we see an example of an application where we pulled in results from Coverity, we've pulled in results from Black Duck. I think we've got results from an Acunetics scanner as well. And so all of these results live in one single location where they've been normalized and deduped, so that as a software security analyst, you see the entirety of the vulnerabilities that have been identified in the software that you're looking at. This allows you to go through to make false positive decisions, to identify which of these vulnerabilities do I maybe need to upgrade because I think they're more serious, which of these, again, would I mark as false positives or would I downgrade in severity. And overall gives you a 360-degree view of the state of this application, with the results that have come out of Coverity, as well as other testing that may have been done, whether manual testing, software composition analysis with Black Duck, dynamic application security testing. All this is in one central location to allow the security analyst to make the best decision possible about what are the vulnerabilities here that we really need to fix. You can also go and drill in and see even more detail. And so we pull across the details from Coverity, as well as any other tools that may have been involved in finding vulnerabilities in this application. And so that gives you the ability to deep dive and really to look at the results coming out of Coverity and to make the best possible decisions about which of these, how do I want to characterize these vulnerabilities, and how do I want to how do I want to bundle these up and ship them over to the dev teams in order to, in order to get these vulnerabilities addressed? Again, so here we see, again, we've pulled in results from Black Duck, from Coverity, from Acunetics, and so whatever your tool set is, ThreadFix supports connections with, I want to say, 35 or 40 these days, different application security and network security testing tools. And we also have a .threadfix file format that allows for the import of other tools if they're not already natively supported. And so your Coverity results live alongside all of the different testing or all the other testing activities that you may be undertaking as well. And finally, with Coverity and ThreadFix, another benefit is because ThreadFix with the 3.0 release, because ThreadFix also allows you to import the results from network and infrastructure testing and to correlate between the network and infrastructure assets that support applications. That gives you a view of the Coverity results you've found in the applications and also lets you view the results of the testing you've done against the network and infrastructure assets that support them. And so when we take a step back and think more broadly about the risk management associated with the vulnerability management process, this allows us not to look from just from the bottom up at network assets and network vulnerabilities, or at the application level from the result of the application testing we're doing. But this lets us look to see for the code that we've written and analyzed with Coverity, with the vulnerabilities we've identified for a given application, what are the risks that we have at the application layer? And you can also see how does that combine with the vulnerabilities and the risks we've seen associated with the network and infrastructure assets that are supporting that code that is running that particular application. And so it allows you this end-to-end view of the vulnerabilities that have been identified, again, so that as security analysts are making a determination, what are the things here that are really important to fix? We have the best information available so that we can use that to direct the limited remediation resources that we have. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions. As Carrie said, there's a question feature and a chat feature. If folks would like to submit via either of those means, that would be fantastic. Let me look at this here and let's see. All right. The first question here is for Mehdi. What are the languages and frameworks that that Coverity supports for static application security testing?
Good question. I believe we have about 17 to 20 programming languages, and the number of frameworks, if I'm not mistaken, is about 60. Coverity has a release every 3 months, and usually we keep adding new languages and frameworks and new checkers with each release.
And that's one of the things that I've noticed about Coverity is you all have a very mature static analysis engine that gives you guys really tremendous insight and the ability to piggyback off the knowledge of those frameworks in a way that not all the other folks in the space have. And so that's one of the things that I've noticed about Coverity that I, as a technician or as a techie person, that I thought was really interesting. The next question here, the differences between ThreadFix 3 and the earlier versions. So the biggest difference that folks will notice, and I talked a little bit about some of these capabilities during this discussion, the biggest difference is the addition of the network and infrastructure, or the support for asset and vulnerability management at the network and infrastructure level. and the ability to correlate between those network and infrastructure assets as well as the applications that sit on top of them. ThreadFix, obviously, for 10 years has been very focused on application security, very strong and mature in that area. But one of the requests that we've received repeatedly over time has been to provide additional context about these applications, specifically the network and infrastructure assets that are supporting them. And so that was the big customer-facing change that we've made in the platform with the 3.0 release. There's also a bunch of changes from a user interface, user experience that's been modernized and updated in a lot of ways. And architecturally, we've switched from a monolithic application to a microservices application. Again, from a customer-facing standpoint, the ability to now bring in those network and infrastructure assets and to correlate them is the biggest capability change that we've had there. And a follow-up question about the availability. Yeah, 3.0 is GA and has been available for a couple of weeks now. And so for folks that may be interested in trying that out, certainly reach out and we can get you set up with that. Okay, another question coming in via the chat. And the question here is what, I think boils down to what is the value of ThreadFix for Synopsys customers? What's the value there or the difference? I would say, and Mehdi, I'll put you on the spot in a minute to see if you have any thoughts on this. But from the ThreadFix standpoint, what we've found is, and obviously as I mentioned earlier, Synopsys has a tremendous set of capabilities in the application security, software security space, with a number of different testing capabilities. What we've found with ThreadFix, customers or organizations that are interested in ThreadFix that are also using the various Synopsys tools is even moderately sophisticated app security and software security programs tend to be multi-activity and multi-vendor. And so for the typical use case or people that we talk to who are interested in ThreadFix that are Synopsys and Coverity customers is we've got this portion of our program run here, and we've got other things that we're doing that we need to include that as well. And something that we're also now seeing in really in earlier stages of a lot of these conversations for us is with the inclusion of the network and infrastructure asset and vulnerability management and the ability to correlate, that provides an even more comprehensive view for organizations, for these analysts to make the decisions that they need to make, about which vulnerabilities are going to get fixed, what teams they get assigned to, and things of that nature. Mehdi, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know if you have any follow-up thoughts to that.
Sure, right. As you mentioned, the ultimate goal is that we delight our customers with a single solution that covers different aspects of their security lifecycle and help them so they can use a SaaS or SCA or IaaS tools and bring the results together in a single view and find and fix and address issues that really matter to them and protects them.
Very good. Let's see. I don't see any other questions out there right now. I don't know if anybody has. We'll give you a moment if there's any other questions that are coming through. Going once, going twice. Well, fantastic. Well, I wanted to thank everyone who took the time today, whatever time zone you are. It's about lunchtime where I'm at, but I appreciate folks taking the time today to sign in for this webinar. We'll be releasing the recording of this, so if you want to review anything that we've talked about or if you'd like to share it with any of your colleagues, that will be getting made available here before too much longer. And I want to thank Mehdi. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk through the Coverity and its capabilities and where you all see yourself in the market. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. That's what I've got. Any closing thoughts, Mehdi?
No, thank you very much also for the opportunity and looking forward to working with you.
Very good. Well, great. Everyone, thank you very much. As I said, we'll be sending out a follow-up with the recording link to this. Appreciate everybody, and everybody go out and have a great day. Thank you all very much.